This is WAAY 31 Law Call.
Welcome to WAAY 31 Law Call. I'm Sharon Joviet. Tonight it's Ask Us Anything night. We're going to take your calls and questions on everything from car accidents to what is court like. We're also going to talk about some of the recent Supreme Court decisions that are affecting you, about to affect you. We're curious what your thoughts are, what your questions are. Maybe you have questions about how it's going to affect your life, or maybe you've got opinions that you'd like to share with us. Call in. The 31 Law Call number is 256-536-0077. You can also email a legal question anytime, any day of the week. You send it to lawcall@waytv.com, and when we get to a show that's on point, we pull some out, and we will have some of your email questions with us tonight. We've got Michael Timberlake and Heath Brooks, both from Timberlake and League. They are personal injury attorneys, so that's everything from car accidents to medical mistakes, and they handle those kind of cases and go to court all the time. It's Ask Us Anything night, but before we start taking your calls, we've got some video. We like to show you what we call, you make the law call. We've got some video pulled from YouTube. So we start off, it's a typical day, lovely. Notice the red dump truck there. So
this is Hampton Cove?
This is not Hampton Cove, fortunately.
Could very well be though.
So the car passes on by, he stopped at this intersection, and hold on, because something's going to come from out of the blue.
Ooh.
There's that dump truck. Now we're told the details are that the brakes gave out and that nobody was seriously injured in this wreck. You guys handle cases like this all the time, whether it's dump trucks, traffic accidents. When you see something like that, what are your first thoughts with that?
Well, I mean, it's hard to believe that anybody was seriously injured, and that's really kind of the first thing you look at with the amount of mass that's moving in that direction, with the energy that it dissipates when it impacts another car. It's really incredible that somebody wasn't hurt severely in that situation. But I mean, obviously what we look at is that, if you're looking at who is the responsible party in that situation. Typically, when you have somebody that's it's a rear-end collision, then you're looking at somebody that failed to keep a safe stopping distance, somebody that failed to keep a proper lookout to see what's in front of them, and misjudged the stopping distance and hit somebody from behind. So, in terms of what we do on a regular basis, this is a fairly routine type thing, and usually the car behind it is responsible. But if there's a mechanical failure, it may not be the case.
It may not be the case. One of the things is when you're dealing with a company that has to maintain their vehicles, you have to maintain your vehicles in a reasonably safe and mechanically sound condition. And if you have reason to know that your brakes could fail, I mean, if this fella had looked like he maybe even had some problems with his brakes up the road a little bit. I mean, if you have reason to know that your brakes fail, you stop your truck, you put it in park, you get out, and you call somebody to come and pick you up. But oftentimes we deal with situations where there are brake failures in large vehicles, and we go back and we look at, hey, what happened? When was the last time this vehicle was checked? And we sometimes find out that the company bricked it and they didn't do what they were supposed to do to maintain the vehicle. So very important, particularly in those kinds of vehicles, to keep them in good shape.
Yeah, and when commercial vehicles, things like this, a lot of them, they have a downloadable module that we can get information about, what are the problems that are having, what was it alerting the driver to, what was the speed of the truck at the time of impact, those types of things. So these are kind of cases that you want to make sure that if something like this happens to you and you're injured, that you make sure that you get that evidence as soon as possible, and you don't let it go away, because that's incredibly compelling evidence that we can get in these types of cases.
Yeah, it'd be hard to argue against any of that, wouldn't
it?
That's the facts.
Right.
We've got callers with questions. We've got Diana on the line from Fayetteville, Tennessee. Hi, Diana. Thanks for calling in. You've got a question or a comment tonight?
I do. I have a question. I've had my granddaughter through the courts for about a year now, and I'm worried that Mom's going to come back and try to get her back, but Mom would not participate into what the judge has told her to do. She hasn't talked to her mother probably in 5 months, and now she's back in the picture because her boyfriend's in jail, so she's back again and now trying to take us to court again.
Gotcha.
Right.
Okay.
Do I need an attorney for this, do you think, or?
Yeah, I mean,
would say yes.
this is a situation, so it could be a little bit different in Alabama, but
Right.
this is kind of right in your wheelhouse.
Yeah.
I mean,
So-
grandparents in Alabama don't have a lot of rights, but it sounds like this is a foster situation.
So this is your granddaughter and you've had her for a year. Is there a DHR, or you may call it Child Protective Services if you're in Tennessee? Is this a state-started case?
It is through the judge, through the court.
Okay, so somehow the child has landed in your care and you've got at least temporary custody of her, right?
Yes.
Okay, but the mom keeps trying to bring it back. So in the state of Alabama, a grandparent, anyone could pursue custody of a child where there is not a parent, mom or dad, willing and able to take care of that child. I could come try and get that child if there's not a parent willing and able to take that child. Now, the court's going to look at a grandparent first and somebody that's very close first, obviously. But if the parent can get themselves back together, then that parent is going to be able to come back into the court system and ask for a change of that custody. Unless you've gone all the way through to termination of parental rights, you've gone all the way through with adoption. And when you get to that point, the parent cannot come back after that. So yes, you need to see a lawyer, get somebody that practices in your area there in Tennessee, because you need to have somebody advising you on how the system works and how to best handle it, okay?
Well, and so if the child's a ward of DHR or Child Protective Services and they're trying to place her with a family member, will those entities not help keep the child with her?
They will, but they're also obligated in the state of Alabama. They're obligated to provide services for that parent. If they need drug classes, they've got to provide that, and the state's going to pay for it. If they need help with jobs, if they need mental health counseling, the state's going to pay for that for many months, trying to get that parent on track.
Right.
If the parent cannot get on track, then the state would be looking at, okay, we've got to make a placement. But even then, that placement is not necessarily a final thing. The parent could come back unless you've gone all the way through termination and the adoption.
Interesting.
Yeah, it does get complicated. We were talking about some of the new Supreme Court cases that have come out.
Yeah.
Some big decisions. Where do you start? Which
You
one?
know,
Which one do you think affects us most?
The one that has the longest history is the one involving affirmative action, which, most folks out there know a little bit about affirmative action, which is colleges, sometimes employers utilize race to make a determination about whether somebody can go to school at a particular college, or at least as one of the factors. And that's the important thing. And this has a long history with the Supreme Court through several different courts since the late 1970s. And finally, the court, in a new opinion, specifically about North Carolina and Harvard's use of race as a factor in their admissions, has determined that you cannot use race as a factor in admissions. There is some leeway within the opinion, but that is the basic gist of the opinion, is that we can no longer use race as a factor when somebody applies to go to college. So obviously, this is going to impact a lot of people, maybe everybody who applies to college. Yeah. So, it's a big deal. Big move for the Supreme Court. Sure.
Yeah. Some other things that are coming out. So one of the other big decisions, the student loan debt that they have overturned, said that the government can't wipe that away the way they did. And that's billions of dollars.
Yeah, I mean, the president does not have the authority, as much authority, unless it's specifically given to him by the legislator, by Congress, to wipe out that much debt. And he had been utilizing the Secretary of Education as a justification, but that didn't work for the Supreme Court.
Right, and I think that's going to continue. There's going to be some more efforts to try to reduce that debt or eliminate that debt, and so we'll see. That will continue to be in the court's eye.
Right.
We've got more callers. Martha is on the line with a question from Huntsville. Hi, Martha. Thanks for calling. What's your question tonight?
Okay, I have a two-part question. First part is, after the termination of rights, is there any way that can be reversed? And then the second part of the question is, that means does it terminate rights for all family members?
So
yeah, that's a good question. So basically, you're dealing with, if you terminate parental rights, and there's the court can do that affirmatively and say that this person is not not a competent parent, can't do this. The other thing is that the parent can voluntarily give up their parental rights in a situation. Some people do it to avoid child support. Some people do it just because of whatever reason or situation that they're in. They don't feel like they should be a parent of a child, and they can do that. But the question is, okay, if you change your mind after you do that, Can you go back and reverse that?
So you can't go back and reverse that, and if the court has gone through the process and terminated parental rights, unless you appeal, if that time frame gets past you, you cannot go back and get that reversed. Does it affect everybody in the family? Yes, it can affect everybody in the family. There are certain circumstances that grandparents could request at the same time the case is moving forward. Grandparent visitation, they can come in and object to termination of parental rights. And in adoption cases, there are certain circumstances that grandparents can say, okay, the child is being adopted by a new step parent, but shouldn't we have visitation? Shouldn't we be entitled to that? But you don't want to rest on your rights. If there's a case open and active, you need to be pursuing it right then. It is very difficult to get anything changed any further down the line once it's terminated.
Yeah, and grandparents have very limited rights. I mean, their rights beginning are derivative of the parent.
Right.
So flow through the parent.
Right.
And so that's, Alabama's given them some rights, but it's very limited situations.
Yeah, it's typically only when you've got the death of the parent. So you've got in between the grandparent, the parent, and the child, the parent has died. So you're asking the court to award you something because the parent is not in the position to be able to let you have visitation with that child. If the parent is still in the picture, generally the courts are going to say, parents get to make their own decisions. If they decide they don't want you around the child, that's up to them. So yeah, grandparents' rights, there are some, but it's very, very limited circumstances. We've got Kaylee on the line with a question from Huntsville. Hi, Kaylee. Thanks for calling. What's your question tonight?
Hi. So my question is, my ex-husband and I are divorced, and he has took my dog, and I want to know if I can get my dog back. Like, do I just go and take the dog, or is there a legal process?
So,
based upon the precedent set in the movie Legally Blonde, you should be able to get the dog back.
Brutus, was it Brutus?
Dogs are property in
Dogs
Alabama.
are property.
Yeah.
So I have had numerous divorce cases where the dog, the cats, I've even had a case with a squirrel, a pet squirrel. And in that case, it was more an argument of, you have to take the pet squirrel. No, you have to take the pet squirrel. While the lawyers are saying, I'll take the pet squirrel and return the pet squirrel free. We shouldn't be arguing over this. Pets are oftentimes listed in the divorce papers themselves. So if you didn't get it handled and that it's treated as property, it would be difficult to go back now and argue with the court that now, after the case is all resolved and the appeals period has gone by, that now you need to be awarded that. If the dog is with him, it's probably going to stay that way. Now, if he's willing to let you take the dog, there's nothing to prevent the two of you with coming up with that decision. But if you're in a divorce case, address it just like you would address
Got to take
children.
care of the pets.
Take care of the pets.
We deal with pet cases a lot.
All the time.
Yeah.
Okay, we're going to take a quick break. Be right back answering more of your questions. It's Ask Us Anything Night. Stay with us.
You're watching WAAY 31 Law Call, where lawyers come to help. Your rights, your calls, live. Hosted by family law attorney Sharon Dovian. With the personal injury attorneys of one of the Valley's most respected law firms, Timberlake and League. Featuring the knowledge of managing partner Michael Timberlake, with millions of dollars awarded to his clients. And the experience of attorney Will League, a strong courtroom fighter known for his commitment to winning. And the fellow partners of Timberlake and League Heath Brooks and William Meservey. This is WAAY 31 Law Call.
Welcome back to 31 Law Call. It's Ask Us Anything Night, so we're talking about anything from car accidents to medical mistakes to Supreme Court decisions. We've got Michael Timberlake and Heath Brooks, both from Timberlake and League. And we wanted to give a shout out to David Dacey, a viewer that says he enjoys watching us. He's in North Madison County and watches all the time. Thank you very much, David, for watching. We just had a caller asking about dogs and pets in divorce cases, but pet cases happen all the time, including personal injury cases.
Yeah.
Well, and so we handle a lot of animal cases, and typically that we deal with animal attacks or things like that. We've also get a lot of questions about dog. If a pet is injured by somebody else, or a pet is unfortunately killed by somebody. What what kind of remedy can you get in that situation? And it's really, you know, in terms of a pet injury, the law in Alabama is very, very, you know, murky. There's not a whole lot of law that sets forth what the damages can be for somebody that may injure your pet, or somebody, if another animal injure your pet as a result of the owner not taking care of it. So it's kind of an interesting thing that, you know, do you get the cost of you know, taking care of the dog? Do you get the actual just value of the dog itself? You know, can you get other types of damages associated with the mental anguish to your pet? So, you know, it's very unclear in Alabama. We're working on that recently in a case. But if it's just a death or to an animal, what's the value?
The problem is that the value is the value of the animal. At least that's been the long-standing law in the state of Alabama. And what is the value of property? What is the value of your dog? Well, to you and to me, I mean, I have 2 large chocolate labs. That you can't give me enough for my chocolate labs. But to the court system, they have a value, and it's not that much. And so, you know, that's the hard thing that we deal with in Alabama, that pets are property, and property, the damages are the retail value of the property, as if a pet was a car, or as if a pet was your microwave oven. And they're just not the same thing. But unfortunately, the law hasn't addressed that.
Yeah. You know, you can't get sentimental attachment to your pet if unfortunately something happens to it and somebody else's fault. And it's not a fair situation. Really, because it's a huge loss to a lot of folks.
Yeah.
We had somebody calling in asking about scam callers. Okay, it's Ask Us Anything night. Scam callers calling you. Can you get them charged with harassment? Could you sue somebody for scam calls?
You know, yes, you know, technically there are different legal avenues that you could get to try to pursue somebody in that situation. The question is, are you going to be able to find them, figure out who they are,
You're right.
You know, what they're going to do, and then at the end of the day, you know, do you spend more money chasing that rabbit down the hole?
You know, and it depends upon the scam call. You know, a lot of times people will have a call like a debt collector. And if you have a debt collector calling you, there are certain rules and regulations, the Fair Debt Collection Practices Act, that particular debt collector has to abide by. And then if they don't abide by that, you have a right of action. But if it's one of these robocalls that's calling you up and you look at this number that you don't know from somewhere in Washington State that you've never heard of, and you try to call that number back and you just get a busy signal or don't get anybody on the line, chances are that you're never going to be able to stop them. You know what I do is I block every one of those calls that comes through, or every one that I think about, and then just walk on, because there's really no way to do it. Even the no-call lists don't work anymore.
Yeah, you're
So,
constantly getting things. Here's a new scam that I'd learned about in recent weeks. People getting arrested. Somehow, scammers get a hold of family members' phone numbers. They start calling family members. Social media will put you in touch with anybody, and they will tell this person, don't you want to help with bail? Don't you want to help with bond? Here's how you send that money. You send it to Venmo, and the money is gone, and you did not help. And it's a real situation. Somebody's really in jail, but they have taken advantage of you so watch out for that one.
Yeah,
And that's here, Madison County. Darlene is calling from Trinity. Hi, Darlene. Thanks for calling. What's your question tonight, or comment?
Well, my question is this. I loaned a man $14,000, and I had him sign an agreement and had it notarized that he would pay it back in a certain period of time. And he put up a sawmill for collateral. Well, when it came time for him to pay this back, he went behind my back and filed bankruptcy. Then I found out that he had been filing bankruptcy. This is the 4th time in the last 20 years. So that way he was thinking he was going to get out of paying it, but because I have this notarized document, when we went to court, the judge ruled in my favor. So I thought it was over with and I could just collect, you know, or either sell the sawmill or whatever. Well, now his lawyer has went and filed an appeal and even threatened us with saying that we're going to have to pay anywhere from $1,500 to $5,000. And I said, what am I paying for? I'm not the one that's done this. You're the crook, not me.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, and that's a, you know, unfortunately, it's a bad situation that people can find themselves in if they loan money to people without any kind of sophisticated process or with collateral. So, you know, the most typical thing we see is a home loan with a mortgage or a car with a title lien in that situation. And the way that bankruptcy works in those situations is because they're collateralized loans, the creditors have a priority right to recover when that property is liquidated or sold. So they can get in front of other debtors in that situation. Sounds like you've got the same type of situation here with the sawmill, that you've got it collateralized through this note. Now I don't know how sophisticated that is, and I'd have to look at it, but you know, you've got some collateral that's going to back up the debt that's owed, and in that situation, you know, you would have the rights to that collateral as long as it wasn't promised to somebody else before anybody else in bankruptcy could get it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good. What kind of lawyer would you tell her to go to have some assistance with that? Sounds like she needs it.
Yeah, I mean it's a difficult situation. There are not a lot of lawyers that kind of bridge that gap.
Right.
There's a lot of lawyers that handle bankruptcy. Anybody that handles a general practice would probably be able to take care of her.
Okay. More Supreme Court decisions. Okay, did we talk about the companies, so the decision about companies being able to refuse to perform services for LGBTQ couples?
Right. You know, and that's a pretty significant opinion, but it's very narrowly tailored to artistic services.
Okay.
So, you know, a basic story is that there's a Colorado law that did not allow businesses to discriminate against LGBTQ members. And this lady had wanted to develop an artistic website or a website for wedding guests, and she called it an artistic expression. And the Supreme Court said in that scenario, because she did not agree with same-sex marriage and she did not want to make these wedding websites for same-sex couples, that she didn't have to, because it was an artistic expression. And so because it was this artistic expression, the Colorado law was just too broad under the Constitution to force her to make art for same-sex couples.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't really impact the significant, you know, it is a significant opinion, but it doesn't really act the core opinions. Like there was, you know, the Ollie's versus the Ollie's barbecue case in Birmingham that said if you're going to be open to the public, you can't deny people services based upon protected class, which is, you know, race, color, sex, creed, national origin. In this situation, the Supreme Court is denying basically people access on a protected class, which is sexual orientation, and it's going to, you know, it's a lot different than what we thought the court was going to do with this type of situation, but it doesn't necessarily change the basic courts of the anti-discrimination laws that we've had.
It's going to lead to a lot more opinions.
Oh yeah,
I can
absolutely.
tell you that.
It's going to open the door to a lot more.
We're going to take a break. Be right back answering more of your questions. It's Ask Us Anything night. If you didn't get your questions answered tonight, here's how to get in touch with Michael Timberlake and Heath Brooks with Timberlake and League in Huntsville. They're personal injury attorneys, so everything from car accidents to medical mistakes. 256-536-0770 or 800-804-2502. The website is law-injury.com, and if you like them on Facebook, you can learn more about the law that way.
And Sharon practices family law, and she did a great job tonight answering questions that we didn't have the answers to. You can call her at 256-539-7337 or SharonFamilyLaw.com.
Thank you for all your calls and questions tonight. We'll see you next week.
Good night.